Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're stepping into what might honestly feel like a frantic, dark, cosmic lab. We're talking about the inner workings of your own mind and body under pressure. We're going to walk through an absolutely essential diagnostic self-test today. The goal? To figure out if you're dealing with hidden nervous system dysregulation. Because frankly, this could be the exact thing driving everything from your daily exhaustion to how you actually experience the passage of time itself.
I want to ask you a question right up front. Which timeline is your nervous system currently living in? Like, are you operating in a state of just constant, unrelenting urgency? Do you feel like there's literally never quite enough time to just breathe? Well, to understand why your body might be reacting this way, we actually need to look all the way back to how the ancient Greeks understood the concept of time.
You see, they didn't just have one clock. They actually had two very different ways of looking at time. On one side, we have Chronos. This is your quantitative, sequential, relentless ticking clock. When you're trapped in Chronos, time is just this glitching, anxious survival mode where you're constantly just trying to outrun the next deadline. But on the flip side is Kairos. Now, Kairos represents qualitative, opportune, meaningful moments. It's that beautiful, harmonious alignment where time feels totally expansive. It's when you're truly present and connected to the exact right moment.
Okay, let's really dive into this. To figure out if your body is secretly trapped in that anxious Chronos survival mode and completely missing out on Kairos, we're going to walk through a three-part diagnostic test. These are the three core red flags that tell us your nervous system is fundamentally dysregulated.
Red flag number 1, frantic rushing. Let's get into it. So, high achievers, perfectionists, driven professionals, we all tend to do this. We mistake panicked, adrenaline-fueled rushing for actual, meaningful progress. It's that classic coffee and hustle trap, right? Your calendar is packed, but your body literally thinks it's outrunning a predator. And this rushing isn't just a bad habit. It has a very real biological name, Tachypsychia. This is a neurological condition where your perception of time actually stretches or distorts during a perceived threat. When you're chronically stressed, your body just gets flooded with adrenaline. And that adrenaline hyperstimulates your amygdala, which is the brain's emotional processing and fear center. So in response to that, the prefrontal cortex, the part that handles higher-order logical thought, gets heavily suppressed. This physically alters how your brain perceives time. Your biological stopwatch is literally running at the wrong speed just to keep you hyper-alert. Crazy, right?
Now, what's really fascinating here is that intense stress alters not just your sense of time, but your actual physical and psychological vision. The body's fight-or-flight response automatically redirects blood flow away from your periphery, sending it straight toward your major muscles so you can take action. And the result? Severe psychological tunnel vision. You become so intensely hyper-focused on the perceived threat, maybe it's a super tense email or an approaching deadline, that you become literally blind to the broader context and the actual safety of your immediate surroundings.
Moving right along to red flag number 2, somatic burnout.
Look, running your nervous system on a chronic, endless strip of adrenaline takes a massive physical toll. Eventually, this system simply cannot sustain that high level of sympathetic activation. Just imagine the devastating biological state of pushing the gas and the brake at the exact same time. The gas is what keeps you moving, right? Going to work, fulfilling obligations, trying to keep up that outwardly functional appearance. But the brake? That is your nervous system actively attempting to shut down. It's numbing your emotions and physical sensations, trying to protect you from total system overwhelm. You're paralyzed, but somehow you're still walking around.
Let's do a quick mental checklist here. Are you experiencing any of these somatic warning signs right now? Cognitively, are you dealing with persistent brain fog or maybe extreme difficulty making even the tiniest decisions? What about emotionally? Is there a pronounced numbness, a feeling of dissociation, or just an inability to enjoy activities you used to think were fun? And physically, do you feel this bone-deep exhaustion that honestly just isn't relieved by sleep, maybe accompanied by shallow breathing or this heavy feeling in your limbs? The scary part is, you might look perfectly fine and highly productive to everyone else, but you feel completely awful and drained on the inside.
Which brings us to red flag number 3, missing Kairos.
So missing Kairos basically means the total inability to pause and experience meaningful moments because your system is just way too exhausted to do anything but survive. Scientists and psychologists actually call this functional freeze.
It's a state of chronic dorsal vagal shutdown. Basically, your nervous system drops into a low-power, playing dead kind of mode. But because of your immense drive, or maybe your past conditioning, you can't afford to fully collapse, right? So you force yourself to keep working, performing highly complex professional tasks, all while experiencing profound internal numbing, apathy, and this overwhelming sense that you're just going through the motions.
Let me share a really profound story with you. There was a highly successful partner at a law firm who was managing multi-million-dollar cases. She described feeling like she was moving underwater. She actually told her therapist, "I sat on the couch in my coat for an hour because I couldn't muster the energy to take it off." This coat on the couch phenomenon? That is not a character flaw. It's absolutely not a sign of laziness or a lack of willpower. It is a profound, deeply ingrained biological survival response.
All right, part 4, the biology of survival mode. Let's look at why exactly this shutdown happens and why it's become so incredibly common in the modern workplace.
The engine behind all of this is the vagus nerve. Think of this nerve as the body's internal neuroception scanner. Totally outside of your conscious control, your vagus nerve is constantly scanning your environment, your relationships, your workplace, everything, looking for cues of danger and safety. And it connects all that sensory input directly to your organs.
Now, when the fret feels endless and inescapable, you enter what's called dorsal vagal shutdown. This is governed by the oldest branch of the vagus nerve, and it's a last resort evolutionary survival response that was originally meant to numb the pain of an attack. And I want to be super clear here, this biological signature is very distinct from depression. Your nervous system isn't broken, it's not malfunctioning, it is simply applying old trauma data, think of it as ancient survival software, to modern, non-dangerous situations, like, an open plan office or a notification pinging on your phone.
And the craziest part? Scientists can actually measure this dysregulation by looking at heart rate variability, which is just the change in the time interval between your successive heartbeats. They can precisely index your cardiac vagal tone. So this proves that the loss of parasympathetic regulation, that inability to just calm down and feel safe, is a totally measurable physical reality. It is not just something you're making up in your head.
Okay, part 5, thawing the functional freeze. Let's just take a breath here and deliberately slow our pacing down for a second. If you recognize those red flags in yourself earlier, the most important, and honestly perhaps the hardest thing for a driven person to realize is that healing requires the exact opposite of effort. Trying to push through, trying to work harder to fix your burnout, that relentless drive is exactly what caused the freeze in the first place. So the true solution isn't adding more to your plate, it is deliberately stepping off the gas.
So what does that actually look like? Let's build this into some tangible, everyday actions. Step 1 is gentle regulation. This means using things like the 5-4-3-2-1 sensory grounding technique to signal immediate safety to your vagus nerve. Step 2 is getting into some hands-on creativity. We're talking coloring, crocheting, pottery, things that engage the body and build resilience. And step 3 is the active, conscious practice of slowing down. It's about celebrating small moments of rest without feeling guilty about it.
And to really support that thawing process, you also need some basic structural shifts. We're talking prioritizing consistent sleep, actively reducing your caffeine intake, strictly limiting your screen time, reconnecting with nature, and, this is a big one, seeking trauma-informed therapy. Guys, these are not just wellness buzzwords. These shifts actively reduce your sympathetic arousal. They quiet the internal alarm bells, which brings your default mode network and your logical prefrontal cortex back online so you can actually experience life again.
There is a quote that perfectly captures this whole reality. You don't have to keep looking fine on the outside while feeling nothing on the inside. If you're a high achiever dealing with this right now, please know that your chronic stress is a brilliant adaptation to a completely unsustainable modern environment. It is a completely normal biological reaction to a world that demands endless availability and productivity. It is absolutely 100% not a personal failure.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this final, somewhat provocative thought. Having taken this diagnostic and really seeing the biological truth of how you've been operating, will you continue frantically rushing through the endless, anxious sequence of chronos? Or are you finally ready to pause, step off the gas, and reclaim your Kairos? Because ultimately, the choice of how you experience time is yours. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer.